I don't know why I noticed the way the light caught her collarbone that day. It wasn't anything new. I'd seen her 100 times before, in that same kitchen, with that same quiet grace, but something felt different, like I was looking too long without realizing it. And she didn't look away. She stood by the window, sleeves rolled up, rinsing a wine glass. Her fingers moved slow, careful. Like the glass could break if she wasn't paying attention. I sat at the edge of the counter stool, pretending to scroll my phone. I wasn't scrolling. Just holding it. I could hear the soft tap of water, the hum of the fridge, nothing else. The house felt too still, like it was waiting on something. She glanced over her shoulder. "You're quiet today," she said, drying the glass. I shrugged. "Just tired." It wasn't a lie. I was tired. Just not in the way she thought. My head was full, buzzing with things I didn't know how to name, questions I hadn't earned the right to ask. She turned around, leaned on the counter, and crossed her arms. Her hair was tied loosely, strands falling near her cheek. She didn't move them. I think she knew I was looking. "You're always quiet when you want to say something," she said. I blinked. "How do you know that?" "I've known you since you were what, 16? She smiled, but only a little. "You've always done that. Your silence says more than your words." The air felt tight. Or maybe I just noticed the space between us more than I should have. She stepped toward the cupboard. I moved slightly to the side, but not far enough. Her arm brushed mine barely, but it felt like something pressed pause. My skin stayed warm long after she passed by. She reached up to grab a mug, and her shirt lifted just enough to show a glimpse of her back. I looked away. Too fast. Like I was guilty. And maybe I was. When she turned, she paused. Mug in hand, still looking at me. And I couldn't tell if her eyes were curious or if I was just imagining it. "You're staying for dinner?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Unless I shouldn't." She tilted her head. "Why wouldn't you?" I didn't have an answer. Not one I could say out loud. Not one that didn't sound wrong. She set the mug down, took a breath like she was going to say something else, but didn't. Just looked at me for a second longer than she needed to. And then, "You always look like you're waiting for permission to speak." I laughed under my breath. "Maybe I am." She stepped closer again. Close enough that I could smell her perfume, faint and warm, like sandalwood and something I couldn't name. She rested her hand on the counter near mine. Our fingers didn't touch. Not quite. But close. Way too close. Then she looked at me, not past me, not through me. At me. And she said, quiet but clear, "Don't make me ask twice." I forgot how to breathe for a second. Her voice was steady. Her eyes weren't. Not entirely. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. She didn't move. Neither did I. And then, the sound of the front door creaked in the distance. She blinked. Pulled back. Too fast. Like she'd remembered where we were. Who we were supposed to be. She turned away and said nothing else. But she lingered in the doorway. One hand on the frame. Back half-turned. Waiting. She didn't come back right away. I heard her footsteps pause in the hall, then turn toward the living room, slow, careful. Like she needed to breathe. Or I did. I stayed in the kitchen, staring at the counter like it might explain what just happened. Her words still hung in the air. "Don't make me ask twice." She hadn't smiled when she said it. She hadn't flirted. It wasn't playful. It was serious. And tired. And something else I didn't want to name. I followed after a minute, quietly. Found her standing by the window, arms crossed, sipping tea from that same mug. She didn't look at me when I entered, but her posture softened, just a little. Enough to tell me I wasn't unwelcome. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded once. "Just thinking." "About?" She glanced over her shoulder, eyes faintly amused. "You're not usually this curious. I usually know what's off limits." Her lips twitched at the edge. Not quite a smile. Not quite not. That never stopped anyone else. She murmured. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't need to. There was a silence after that. Not cold, not awkward, just space. Like either of us wanted to fill it too fast. She sat down on the armrest of the couch, knees drawn together, fingers around her mug like it was the only thing anchoring her. I sat across from her, on the floor. Closer than I probably should have. Her eyes lingered on my face longer than usual. Like she was searching for something she couldn't find in men her own age. Or maybe she just missed being looked at the way I was looking at her. I didn't mean to make things weird, I said. You didn't. She tilted her head. And even if you did, it's been weird for a while. I exhaled a laugh, dry and nervous. Yeah. She set the mug down on the side table and leaned forward slightly. You know why this is dangerous, right? I nodded. It's not just the age thing. No, she said, quieter. It's not. There was something buried in her tone, like regret pressed into each word. Not about this, not exactly. But about everything that made her wary of it. Her past. Her name. Her son. And maybe the way I reminded her of something younger, something she thought she wasn't allowed to want anymore. Have you ever? I stopped. Swallowed. Felt like something was wrong only because people told you it was? She didn't answer right away. Just looked at me. Her hand rested against her knee, and her fingers tapped once, twice. Then stopped. Once, she said. Years ago. What happened? She smiled, but the kind that didn't reach her eyes. I listened. I nodded slowly. Tried not to stare at the way she looked when she said it, like someone who'd made peace with her choices, but not her desires. We didn't touch. But she leaned over at one point to adjust the hem of the throw blanket near my leg, and her knuckles grazed mine. Light. Barely there. But I didn't move. Neither did she. She straightened up slowly, eyes on my hand for a second too long. And then she said it, soft, careful. You always look at me like I'm still beautiful. I froze. Not because it wasn't true, but because it was too true. Too naked. Too much. You are, I said before I could stop myself. She inhaled sharply. Looked down at her lap like she wished she hadn't heard it. We sat there in silence again, but this time it wasn't peaceful. It pulsed between us. Loud and quiet at the same time. The kind of tension that made even breathing feel complicated. Then, the sound of a phone vibrating on the table. Hers. She didn't move to check it. Just stared straight ahead. Neither of us said anything. But everything had already been said. It was late, too late to still be there. She offered to drive me home, but didn't insist when I said I'd walk. Maybe part of her hoped I'd stay a little longer. Maybe part of me already had. She was standing by the kitchen sink again, rinsing out her mug. Same slow movements. Same silence that didn't feel empty anymore. I should probably go, I said. She nodded but didn't move. Probably. Her voice didn't match her answer. It sounded soft, like she wasn't ready to be alone yet. Or maybe she just didn't want me to be gone. I took a step toward the counter to grab my keys. She turned at the same time. We nearly bumped. Her hand landed lightly on my chest, just a touch, meant to steady. Meant to stop. We both froze. Neither of us moved. Her fingers stayed there a second too long. Then pulled back, not fast, but deliberately, like she was peeling herself away from something she wanted to hold onto. Sorry, she said, voice thin. Habit. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The spot where her hand had been felt hotter than the rest of me. She took a step back. This is getting complicated. It already is. She looked at me, really looked. Her arms crossed tight over her chest now, like she was bracing for something. I'm not proud of this. You haven't done anything. That's not the point, she said. You know it isn't. I did. I really did. She was my best friend's mom. Nearly twice my age. Married technically, though I hadn't seen him around in weeks. She never brought him up. Never corrected people who assumed she lived alone. Still, the lines were there. Faint, maybe, but they existed. And we kept towing them. Over and over. I leaned against the counter beside her, close enough to feel her warmth. Neither of us looked at the other. "I'm not trying to make this harder," I said. She laughed under her breath, bitter, quiet. "You're not making it anything. That's the problem." Before I could respond, her phone buzzed on the table. She didn't check it, but her jaw tightened. I glanced at the screen. Just a name, Mark. No emoji. No warmth. "Your husband?" I asked. She gave a slight nod, like it hurt to confirm. "He thinks we're fine." I didn't know what to say. So I didn't. We stood there for another moment. Breathing the same air. Hearing the same silence. And then, she looked up at me, eyes glassy. Vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen before. "If you kiss me," she whispered, "I don't think I'll stop you." I didn't move. My heart pounded. She wasn't daring me. She was warning me. I didn't kiss her. But I didn't step back either. We stayed like that, too close, not touching, both of us caught between what we wanted and what we feared. And as I finally turned to leave, fingers curling around the doorknob, I told myself I wouldn't come back. But the truth sat quietly in my chest. I knew I shouldn't be feeling this, but I was. I didn't plan to go back. I told myself it was over. That I'd crossed too many lines already just by thinking what I thought. Wanting what I wanted. But that was the problem with feelings like this. They didn't care about what made sense. They just stayed. It rained the night I came back. Light, warm rain. The kind that clung to your clothes instead of soaking you. Her porch light was on. I could have lied and said I was passing by. I didn't. She opened the door before I could knock. Like she'd been standing close. "You're here," she said. Not a question. I nodded, quiet. "You shouldn't be." "I know." But I didn't move, and she didn't close the door. She stepped aside, and I walked in. We didn't speak for the first few minutes. She poured a glass of wine, not asking if I wanted any. I stood near the fireplace, watching the way the light flickered across the hardwood floor. "You didn't text?" she said. I didn't know what to say. She nodded, her jaw tensing. "Neither did I." We sat on opposite ends of the couch, facing forward, not each other. The wine in her glass barely moved. She hadn't taken a sip. "I thought about you," I said finally. Her head turned slow. "Don't say that." "Why?" "Because it makes it worse. It's already worse." She looked down at her hands. Her nails were chipped, a small detail, but suddenly all I could see. She always seemed so put together. And now, this little imperfection made her more real than ever. "I'm not someone you should be thinking about," she said softly. "I'm not her. I'm not some fantasy. You think I don't know that?" Her eyes flicked to mine, sharp, wet. "I've given everything to people who looked at me like they didn't see me at all," she said, voice rising. "And then you." She stopped, shaking her head. "You sit there and look at me like I matter. Like I'm not falling apart. You do matter." Her laugh was bitter and sudden. "You don't get it. You can't. You're too young. You still think loving someone means saving them. I never said I loved you." The second it came out, I wanted to take it back. Not because it wasn't true, but because it was so close to true, and neither of us were ready to hear it. Her lips parted. She blinked slowly, like she'd felt something hit her in the chest. "Right," she whispered. "Of course not." She stood, moving toward the hallway. I followed her, too fast, too emotional, not thinking. She turned around, and I almost walked straight into her. We were inches apart. I could feel her breath. See the tears she hadn't wiped away. "Don't," she said, voice trembling. "Don't say anything else." I didn't. I just looked at her. Eyes locked. Both of us shaking. Then, barely above a whisper, "Don't go." We kissed. It didn't feel wrong when it happened, not in the way I expected. It felt like something we'd been circling for weeks, something both of us knew was inevitable. But the second it ended, she stepped back. Too fast. Like she'd touched fire. Her fingers brushed her lips. Not softly, more like she was trying to erase the moment before it settled into her skin. "I shouldn't have," she said. I reached for her hand. She didn't let me take it. "I'm sorry," I whispered, though I didn't know what for. Wanting her? Kissing her? Letting her kiss me? "No," she said. "I'm the one who should be sorry." Her voice cracked on that last word. She turned her back to me and wrapped her arms around herself like she was holding something in. I stood there, unsure whether to move closer or disappear. "I lied," she said finally. "Not directly, but I let you believe something." I waited. I could hear the faint hum of the fridge. The clock ticking too loudly. "I'm not separated," she said. "Mark and we still share the house. He's working abroad, but he's coming back." I blinked. "You said you were alone?" "I said I felt alone," she corrected, eyes still on the floor. "That's not the same thing." It wasn't. I wanted to be angry. But mostly, I felt small. Stupid even. Like I'd fallen into something she already knew the way out of. "So this was what?" I asked. "A temporary feeling?" She turned to me, slowly. Her face looked tired. Not from the night, but from carrying whatever this was for too long. "No," she said. "It wasn't temporary. That's the problem." I didn't know how to respond to that. The weight of her honesty hit heavier than her silence ever did. "I got a job," I blurted. "Out of state. I start in 3 weeks." She blinked. It was her turn to be surprised. "Why didn't you say anything?" "I didn't know if it mattered." "It does." Too fast. Too real. Too late. She sat down slowly on the edge of the couch, eyes distant. "This, whatever this is, it can't follow us." I nodded. I understood. But understanding didn't make it hurt less. The room felt smaller now. Like we'd pushed too far, and there wasn't enough space to come back from it. She looked up at me, something caught in her throat. "I didn't mean to let it get this far," she said. And I believed her. But that didn't make it untrue. I sat beside her, not close, not far. Just there. We didn't speak. Her hand rested on the cushion between us. Mine stayed still. Inches apart again, but this time, we didn't reach. We just sat with it. With all of it. Neither of us moved. And I didn't know if we were about to say goodbye, or just too afraid to say anything at all. The next time I saw her, it was raining again. Harder this time, loud, unforgiving. The kind of rain that drowns out your thoughts unless you say them out loud. I didn't plan it. I just showed up. She opened the door in an oversized sweater and bare feet. Hair down, loose around her face. No makeup. No effort. Still the most beautiful I'd ever seen her. She didn't ask why I was there. She just stepped aside. I walked in. Dripping wet, heartbeat louder than the storm. She handed me a towel. Sat on the edge of the couch. I didn't sit. "I leave in 10 days, I said. She nodded slowly. "I know." Silence again. I looked at her, really looked. She was everything I wasn't supposed to want. And still I did. Desperately. "I want you," I said, my voice low but clear. "But I don't know how this can work." She looked down at her hands, fingers threaded tightly like she was holding something in again. "I've been asking myself the same thing," she said. "Every night since that kiss." She stood, walked over to the window. The rain cast soft shadows on her face. When she spoke again, her voice shook. "I was 23 when I married Mark," she said. "He was older. Smart. Safe. And for a while, that was enough. She turned back to me. I haven't felt seen in years. Not until you. I took a step forward. Then why are we both pretending we're okay walking away? Because we don't fit, she said, almost pleading. Because it's messy, and it's selfish, and it's real, and I don't know what it would turn into if we actually let it happen. You're scared, I said. Yes, she whispered. I'm terrified. I took another step. I don't care what people think. I don't care if we only get a week or a month or whatever this is. She closed her eyes. Exhaled like the words hurt. I care, she said. Because when it ends, I'll still be here. In this house. With everything that's mine but hasn't felt like mine in years. And you'll be out there, doing something real, with someone who doesn't have to hide. I didn't know what to say to that. Because she was right. And yet, I still want you. She looked at me then. Really looked. Like she was searching for a reason to say yes. She stepped forward. Stopped inches away. Her hand didn't touch mine, but her voice did. If you stay tonight, she said, you stay knowing it can't be forever. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She took one long breath. And then, silently, she turned and walked down the hallway, slow, almost hesitant. Halfway down, she paused. No words. Just a look over her shoulder. The door to her room was left open. She didn't ask me to stay. Not with words, anyway. Just that look, half over her shoulder, soft, unsure. But open. The door left ajar wasn't just to her room. It was to something deeper, harder to name. I stood there for a long time. Long enough for the rain to slow. Long enough to realize I wasn't shaking anymore. When I finally walked toward her, it wasn't out of impulse. It was something quieter. A decision. We didn't sleep together that night. We just talked. Lay next to each other. Face to face, inches apart. Eyes adjusting in the dark. Her voice lower than I'd ever heard it. She told me about the time her marriage started to fade, how the silence between her and Mark stopped being peaceful. How she used to fall asleep with her phone in her hand, hoping someone would just ask if she was okay. I told her about college, how I'd never really felt connected to anyone, not fully. That I always left before it got complicated. Until her. We didn't promise anything. No plans, no fantasy future. Just honesty. And for the first time, it was enough. 2 weeks later, I left. Suitcase in the trunk. New city waiting. New job. Everything moving forward. But before I pulled out of her driveway, she came outside, sweater wrapped around her, hair pulled back, eyes soft in the morning light. She handed me a thermos of coffee. I didn't ask if it meant something. I'm not asking you to stay, she said. I wouldn't. I smiled. Even if you did. She nodded. But I'll call, I said. She smiled, a real one this time. Then I'll answer. Now it's 6 months later. We're still us. Messy, complicated, and not always easy, but real. Sometimes we meet halfway. A weekend here, a quiet weeknight there. We don't talk about what comes next. Not because we're afraid, but because we're still here. And that's enough for now. She came to visit me last week. Brought the same thermos. We drank coffee on my balcony in silence, our fingers laced loosely on the table between us. I still don't know where this is going, she said, her voice calm. I looked at her, her profile soft in the morning light, the city humming quietly below us. Neither do I said. But I know I want to be here. With you. For however long you'll let me. She squeezed my hand. Didn't speak. And that was the moment I knew we'd already chosen each other. Quietly. Fully. Without needing to ask twice.